welcome to the Challenge with John Chapman. I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, and we are endeavoring to bring religion and politics back to the dining room table of discussion. So it's good to be with everybody. Today, it's interesting. We have what I would call a studio audience today, and which is kind of fun. And we also have Mr. Willman. Good to have you with us today, Mr. Willman. And if it wasn't for Mr. Willman, this mic would be off and the audio would be gone, and that's how that works. So I want to say today, this is going to be a little bit of an interesting, sometimes I kind of go mano-y-mano. It's just me and my own thoughts, and that's what we're getting today. And upcoming soon is the November 4th elections for the school board for Des Moines. And that's what this discussion is going to be about, because I was pleasantly received from what I would call, I'd like to be all, hyper CIA about it, like an inside source, but it's just somebody I know who goes to Drake. And they very graciously sent me an invitation because the student body there held a panel meeting with candidates that were running for the school board, the Des Moines School Board. And so I used that opportunity to go down there and got to listen to the panel. And I'm going to discuss a little bit about that, some thoughts. 3 of the people running came to the panel discussion. And the school participants who made it happen, I want to say, did an excellent job. Sometimes I am really critical of liberal schools, and I want to make an honest statement out here to folks, because I've had my criticisms. You name it, I can pick on it. You pick a public school, I can pick on it. You pick Drake University, or you pick one of the state universities, and I have all kinds of things and opinions that I could pick on them. So you know me as being a bit critical on some things like that. But the reason I say that is I want to honestly also say the ladies that ran the discussion, the 2 young ladies that ran the discussion, did not only a pleasant job, but I thought an excellent job with their questions. I just thought, last night I thought, when I go onto the podcast, they deserve a credit statement, because it was very informative, and it didn't lean hard like I thought it would either way. And so I just want to put a shout out to the political student interest group. I'm not even sure exactly who they were or what the organization was called, but the ladies that put that together, I thought just did a fantastic job. So that's worth saying, because I can be critical of those, and not that my accolades mean anything to what they're doing. They did it on their own, and I was really impressed. It was really pretty awesome like that, and that's just worthy of well done, ladies, for doing that. Also, before I get into meat in this, just a reminder, as you're listening to the podcast, we're always enjoying it. We see more people coming to White Dove Ministries website, and you can go to that, whitedoveministries.net, and find out the totality of what we do, of which this podcast is a part of that. And you can also go to Facebook, White Dove Ministries DSM. You can we got a Facebook there, and you also have our podcast has its own Facebook, and you can like and follow, and you can share. If you we're still working towards that number. A few more people are getting on there. We're still getting to a place. I think I have to put a count on that. I think we're getting close to 20. If 20 more people will follow the podcast on Facebook, it opens up the doors for us to reaching even a larger people group. And so as we keep working towards that, I'll let you know when we hit the goal. We'll go, hooray! I don't know, we'll have a little party. Maybe Mr. Willman can get a couple of those little poppers, go, and they'll come flying out, and then we'll have the ministry volunteers on Sundays clean it up. I don't know, something along those lines. So this is my thoughts on sitting in on last night, and it was also a learning experience for me. And I want to encourage people, you got to do things you've never done before to overcome the fears and the nerves that you get. Like, we've all been to Facebook and we've seen the videos. We've gone to YouTube and we've seen the videos and go, how do these people talk with other people, or what would it be like to be in a panel discussion or watch a panel discussion, or would I ever have any questions? Well, the only way to overcome that is receive an invitation like I did via my insider Drake, and go, you know what? I'm going to stop my evening and I'm going to go down there and I'm going to check it out. So that is something I did last night, and I'm glad I did, even though I didn't ask any questions there, and they opened up the forum too. It was a great learning experience for me to see how that works, and also to be a participant without, I don't know, I'm full of bias. I think we've made that very clear on this program, that I am leaning, right? So I am filled with bias, and I don't believe anybody isn't filled with bias. It's just a matter of what angle it's coming from. That's why we have conversations, so that we can find other points of ground, whether we agree or not. That can be helpful. And this was an engagement of that I thought was pretty good. So the election's coming up November 4th, and when I showed up to the panel discussion yesterday, and I don't know how long they had determined to do the panel discussion. I think just within a couple of days. So maybe the turnout wasn't as much as I would have liked to see. And I honestly thought there was going to be more people there. But I counted the heads 3 times when they started, midway through to see if anybody else came in, and then at the end. And what I learned is that I was glad I came, because it was a bit of a reflection on, I don't know how many people received an email or the invitation for the student body, or how far that it got into Des Moines. But what it did share with me is here was an opportunity to engage in what could be one of the single most important debacles that has happened in the city. For certain, the school, and this is not a criticism of the school or the people, I'm saying this issue is so big, it's not very often Glenn Beck talks about Des Moines, Iowa. I'm just saying. It is not very often Tucker Carlson talks about Des Moines, Iowa. I respect these people, but probably corn, soybeans, cattle, and such things are not at the top of their list always, unless there's a real economic, ramification from that. So here's a big deal, and my head count, once it started, halfway through, and at the end, remained the same, 15. 15 total people in this entire small theater, what I would consider a small lecture room. Yes, I did go to college for 1 year. I do know large lecture rooms and smaller lecture rooms, like a small movie theater, but you could have got a couple hundred students in there. So Channel 5 was there with a camera. So one channel was there with a camera. The 2 moderators, the 2 ladies that did an excellent job, I thought. 3 of the candidates, which isn't all of the candidates. There should have been 5 if all of them were going to participate in the conversation. 3 of the candidates were there. And then the rest of us in the cheap seats. And I don't know what that consisted of me and 2 students, maybe 3 students there, and 2 people older than me, I think, and maybe that was a risk to say that, in there to make up the totality of this. And I thought, at first I thought, maybe this is already a reflection of part of the problem. And usually, admittedly, I'm part of the problem, because if you don't get involved in these things, I don't want to rebuke anybody for that, but we also have to say, if this is an important issue, we also want to learn more about it. Now, I'm sure there's there's already been other discussions. Other TV news networks have had at least 2 of the candidates on to share who they are, what they believe in, and all those things. But it's more difficult at the local level to get involvement, notably. But what is it going to take for us as a community, you, the listener, to be active in your own community? Don't worry, I'm going to get to my thoughts on this, because there were some good questions that were asked, and there were some obvious answers by these 3 candidates that were telling. And I mean telling. 3 really nice people. I got a chance to talk to all 3 of them, and I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed my conversations, some of them were brief, one of them was a little bit longer, with all three of them. I thought, pleasant people. Obviously, difference in thought and on a couple of occasions for sure, but you're not voting for somebody because of who they are over a handshake and a short conversation. And that's why this panel was formed, for them to be able to have those discussions. So to have an empty room like that, I went, here's part of it. Something in our society allows for a lack of involvement. And if I can, because I really think the school board must own what has happened with Ian Roberts. I think that not because I'm biased. I think that because that is a principle of me and Christ in me. And the principle is this. Again, this is not because I am opposed to left liberal thinking. I am opposed to much of what the Des Moines District does. I'm opposed to much of what many public schools do. And there's a lot of really good things that are also occurring in public schools that must be recognized and acknowledged. But when I say this debacle has occurred, and that doesn't come from a political ideal, this is why it's important to bring Christ to the conversation. Why do I believe that the current school board should stop beating around the bush, pointing at everybody else, actually suing the company that they went and hired to do the background checks? Now, maybe that company was worthless. Maybe they're full of liars. But when the superintendent gets arrested for not obeying a deportation court order in the Biden administration, I'm sorry, you must stop. And if you make this declaration, well, yeah, I'm a Christian. Okay. If that's the case, then is not the very fundamental premise of our Christianity is Christ, the Savior, says of himself, I bring you the good news, and you say of yourself, I need the good news because I am wrong with my sinful nature. But that's the bottom line is I am a sinner. Therefore, I have to look at my life and go, oh my gosh, I'm a walking debacle. Who's going to save me? Well, thanks be to God, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. That is my fundamental for this premise. And then also being raised with that, meaning to believe in the need for that and personal responsibility, then I would think that the school board would then go, you know what? This happened. And it is time to take a look at us and to do the next right thing instead of doing what they're doing now, which, if you've read C.S. Lewis's book, Mere Christianity, this line always sticks out to me. He states in there, and I'm not going to quote it accurately, but I'm going to pull it from a distance in my mind. It's been a couple of years. He says, once an individual has merged off of the correct path or highway of life, it is of no benefit to continue to make corrections while you are off of that highway until you get back on to the highway. And what C.S. Lewis is helping us or trying to get us to understand is, until you say, I am off of the highway and I must get there first, then it doesn't matter how moving forward you go, you're no longer on the highway. And the Des Moines School Board is having a very hard time saying, I did it. Junior Asparagus knew better. In the world famous, please note my tongue-in-cheek here, classic of VeggieTales, Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space. I'm telling you, it's one of my top One of my top ones. And I'm speaking to the younger crowd right now. Obviously. I love that little 26-minute video. First of all, Larry Boy, he is my hero. There's no question about that. We got to understand flying cucumbers are amazing creatures. And when little fibs fall from outer space, and by the way, if you've not seen this, you're going to want to dig deep now and go, you know what, I got to go find that. I got to know what John's talking about. When small fibs enter into our life, they grow. I don't want to give away the end of the story, but I'm going to have to for the listener, because I know I'm baiting you and you're going, no, John, tell me what happens next. And so when junior asparagus, and I love asparagus. I love all types of asparagus. I'm not picky. All asparagus are equal in the sight of God. And when junior asparagus decides to let a small fib enter into his life because of something he did, even inadvertently, and he tells his father that he didn't, that began him getting off the right highway. He has stepped off of the freeway. And junior asparagus has well-meaning in his heart, an incredible intention of innocence. He is cute as a button. It is hard to watch the show, as cute as junior asparagus is, and understand that he is lying, and even want to accuse him of such an atrocity. But the problem is if you don't get back on the highway, the freeway, the correct path, everything you say is a correction, but it's actually creating a bigger lie. And the Des Moines School District isn't even as wide. Right now, they're being junior asparagus for the first part of that show. And I'm still hoping someone somewhere, not those who are trying to get on the board who have not been on the board, but those who have been on the board, because this plays into a question that was asked last night down at Drake, is that you don't get back onto the highway until junior asparagus has this revelation and says it. And it's true, because the lie has grown so big that junior asparagus no longer has the capacity to be anything but under bondage, in the grip of the lie. It is impossible to release. If you understand scriptures, if you understand your own nature, and if you understand Jesus Christ and the truth, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You do. If you are not aware of what I'm talking about, not only watch Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space, but get your Bible out and get your heart down on the ground and say, you know what, Lord, I got a lot to become other than what I am. And the only way out is to say exactly what junior asparagus says at the end of that show. The only way out of the bondage, the only way to freedom and right living and right planning and right leading and right boardmanship and writing a system of school, you see where I'm going with this, is to say, and I hope the Des Moines School Board, especially the current members, and I know voting is going to make some changes, but that's not going to help the hearts of the people who are on the board, or our whole system if it can't be admitted. I am hoping the whole school board will adopt this phrase that junior asparagus makes, that sets him free also. To quote junior asparagus, that releases him from the lie that has grown too big. He says this: I broke the plate. His father's precious item that had been damaged, he lied for so long, he finally just said the truth. And if that isn't freedom for which Christ has set us free, I don't know what it is. And if this doesn't tell into what society continues to try to do, separate from Christ, separate from mercy, separate from grace, it struggles at a very public level to ever receive the blessing of God, because I'm still waiting for the current members of the school board, and I know that I think they're holding off until after the 4th. We'll let the people decide. You know what? So you can have a clear conscience somebody get up to that microphone and say, we broke the plate. It was us. You voted for us. The buck stopped here. And that is not happening. And I have to say, in last night's panel, that continued to reveal itself. So let me get to a couple of things here. Just give you some information on what is coming up here. There's 4 different districts: D1, D2, D3, and D4. They're being voted for. This is just recent. I've been trying to educate myself on this and to help you with it too. All these districts are the representation. There are 4 positions being voted upon, and 5 people who are running to obtain them, and there's 2 incumbents. Thankful to our studio audience who helped do the research on incumbents, because I forgot what it was, and we arrived at the correct conclusion of yes, it means somebody is still in the position and running for it again. So that's the kind of good stuff we got going on here, and that was researched even while Mr. Willman was prepping for the whole thing. It was amazing the way it all came together. And so your incumbents, you have 2 people that are still sitting in there, and then I'm going to tell you who is the current board members, and then the 3 that came yesterday for the panel discussion at Drake. So we know the chair, Jackie Norris, which I'm not sure yet. I think she may have stepped down. Does anybody know about that? I'm not sure either. I got a shrug from Mr. Willman. He's not sure. I don't know. It could just be a rumor. I do believe what I did see is she has stepped down for running for the Senate. That I am confident of. That she has done. She still hasn't admitted to breaking the plate. And that's not a real admission. But it is true. She was the president, the chair of the board. The vice chair is Skylar Mayberry Hayes, and Skylar was an appointee. He was there from when there was a passing of one of the board members, and when that person passed, then Skylar was placed in that position. I don't know what the process is or the temporary vote you have to fill when somebody dies. So Skylar Mayberry Hayes was the vice chair in this last year's. Maria Alonso, who is also rerunning. She is also an incumbent, Maria Alonso. And I want to say Skylar Mayberry Hayes was there last night. Kudos to him for being there and showing up for the conversation. And Maria Alonso, she was there. Both of them incumbents, and she was there. Kudos to her for showing up for the discussion. Anna Campos, Patrick Dix, Jenna Knox, and Kimberly Martirano. And forgive me, that's not intentional if I didn't say it right. My handwriting is just that bad. And so these are the current seated ones, but there's positions that are open to be filled. So people are not going to be running again. So Marcus Conan was there last night, and he is running. He is not an incumbent. This will be his first time, and he was also at the discussion. So at Drake's discussion last night, to learn a little bit more about the type of people who are running for the board and their ideas about what it is to be a board member, and I got an emphasis on this, their ideas on the purpose of the board. And I want to say that's important. This has been an eye-opener for me because I have since looked up the vision and the mission of DMPS, Des Moines Public Schools. And I found interesting the conversation. So you have Skylar Mayberry Hayes was there last night, Maria Alonso was there last night, and Marcus Cohen was there. And I got to meet all of them at some level. And again, they were pleasant to talk to, right? That's hardly the issue. And so here's some things that came away with me. So I found very interesting. And I guess I would say this for the 15 people that were there last night. I hope that whoever hears this, if you've never voted before, decide like I am that on November 4th I'm going, and I'm going to vote. And I've just never done that before, right? So that's a confession of sin, right? I broke the plate. So there must be some level of accountability that if our government actually is set up for the people of Polk County to go down and vote for the people that we are expecting to be in there, then I have to go do that because I've been complaining about what's happening, and yet I didn't even vote once for who's on the Des Moines School Board. Where I live, there was a Des Moines School Board member that lived right down the street, and I didn't even vote when they were on the board for a long time. And I'm like, okay, it's not that you don't have a right to complain or criticize at some level, but if the board is a reflection hear me now, if the board is a reflection of what's been voted in, what does that say of us in Des Moines and Polk County? So we have to own something of this. We have to own something of this. And I'm going to say this too. It's my commentary, right? I can go off. I can rabbit trail anytime I need, right? I find I never thought. I always thought, no, I don't have time to get involved. I don't have time to get involved. I don't have time to get involved. And if you follow the Challenge Facebook, I shared some thoughts about what I thought was going on down at the farm with the school board. And I had somebody comment on one of my statements, and initially it caught me off guard because it scares me to get involved in politics in the sense of, I never want to be a representative. I never want to be the mayor. I never want to be the governor. I never want to be on a board. I never want to do anything. And for crying out loud, don't ever make me the president of the United States. I couldn't take it. Anybody, even presidents I don't like, you're better people than me. I am not that guy. So one of the comments comes through the Challenge Facebook page, and it says, John, maybe it's time for you to be on the school board. And I went, okay, all right, I see the look. It's being given to me right now, right? I got the eyebrow lift right now, and I'm going, yeah, you know what? I heard that, and I went, and I don't think they were trying to poke me. I think what they were saying is, so what about that? Now, I am not on this ballot. I think you can write in, though. I think you can. I could probably go down and put my own name down there if I wanted. I don't know what I'm going to do. But for the first time ever, I thought, wow, you live life once. And I'm not saying I'm running for the school board. What I am saying is you do have to strongly consider things like that at some point. Like I can't play them soft anymore. I have to go, wait a minute, I'm blah, 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 blah years old, and I only have blah, blah, blah years left to live, and maybe only till tomorrow. I don't know. So that was interesting that even one person would put a vote of confidence, well, maybe you should do this. And for the first time ever, I thought, maybe I should. Like, that's how involvement is. And there was this weird little fear that I suddenly overcame, and I thought, I don't know. It's possible. It's possible. Maybe not a bad idea. Maybe next vote. I don't know. But it challenged me, and I appreciated that somebody said that. And then watching these people step out and do it, and I'm going to sit back and say, you know what? I am totally not voting for that person to be on the board. But would I be willing to sit on the board in their stead and give ideas, truths, research, and keep it to where I think I would? I don't know. Even if I disagree with somebody and think they're bad at it, they are doing it. So there must be something to that. You as a Christian, by all means, follow not your heart, but the Holy Spirit, because he's in charge. Remember, not your heart. The Holy Spirit's in charge of you. But let your person be open to where God might be taking you. All right? That's all I'm saying. Oh, this is awesome. I put this down here on my notes. And my apologies. I only got the name of one of the moderators. This young lady, I want to say her name because she did it fantastically. Gabrielle Brooks was one of the moderators, and I'm going to refer back to her again. And I just want to say her name because I think the credit is due. Did a great job. And the two gals equally asked good questions, and they did a fantastic job, but I don't type fast enough, so I didn't catch the name of the other gal, and I'm sorry about that. And so here you have the three candidates in there, and here are some... before I go to the questions here with a couple of the answers here, bear with me. I went over and I pulled this up because didn't you know that Des Moines Public Schools has a vision statement and a mission statement? So I pulled that up so we could all read that together. Let's take a look at that here just for a second. Here's the vision. Here's the vision statement. Agree with it or not, this is the vision statement, ladies and gentlemen, for the Des Moines Public Schools. And it reads, we will prepare and inspire every DMPS student to achieve beyond all imagined possibilities, lead with the resiliency to navigate an ever-changing society, and leave a lasting impact on our community and world. I'm going to read that one more time. And maybe you'll want to look it up at some point. I'm going to read it one more time. So we understand this is the vision. This is down on the website for Des Moines Public Schools. We will prepare and inspire every DMPS student to achieve beyond all imagined possibilities, lead with the resiliency to navigate an ever-changing society, and leave a lasting impact on our community and world. So tuck that in your pipe, and you can smoke it later. But this is. By the way, I got a reaction in the studio from that. By the way, that was something my dad always used to say. When he used to say that, have you ever been raised on something your folks used to say something right, and then you get older and you're like, oh my gosh, I just said that. So my dad used to say, put that in your pipe and smoke it. He'd always say that, and yet he didn't ever give me a pipe or anything to put in it. So I always thought, what do you mean, Dad? Well, I'm an adult now and I get it. So there's also a mission statement from the Des Moines Public School System, and this is right under there. So I've read you the vision statement. Here's the mission statement. Here it is. At DMPS, our pursuit of excellence for each student recognizes the multiple pathways available for students to cultivate their own success with the support and partnership from our community. So 3 simple lines. At DMPS, I'm going to read it again too. Our pursuit of excellence for each student recognizes the multiple pathways available for students to cultivate their own success with the support and partnership from their own community. Now, I would not have thought this originally because I pulled these up because I wanted to just have them for the show. But I'm going to give you my very candid, honest opinion about the 2 things that I've read. First of all, I don't think either the vision or the mission actually state what should be happening. I don't think either one of them do. I don't think either one of them point to the fact of what public education should really wanting to be doing. And I think the Ian Roberts thing is a reflection of that. And I think and it's not all kids that go to school, they get their own grades, they graduate or don't graduate, and move on in life. It's kind of that simple in many ways when you think about it, that when you're done with the 12th grade, the next step in becoming a responsible adult is make the next decision and pursue it. So there's 12 years of this, and I'm going to say right now, if anything, the vision and the mission reflect the religious problem of the hearts of the people that sit on the board. Because so much of this has nothing to do. It comes from a place of variancy and constant change. And if you're a Christian, there isn't either. God is not mocked. God never shifts. He is not a shifting shadow. He is the light of the world. His truth does not change. How can there be a godly character infused in a district that says society is ever changing? As if in the navigation and resiliency of that, we are changing all the time also. Now, to split that hair, if you're a Christian, you're being changed by the righteousness of Christ. But unfortunately, society today has gone so far from Christianity, it believes that society is, and this is the word that best describes it, is evolving toward a better? No. See, society has come off of the highway. They have come off of the freeway. And the problem is they are navigating betterment while not being on the highway. And right now, we need to be advocating for things that don't change to produce societal education that equips the kids with knowledge, not societal change. They should be giving fundamental, foundational, rooted things so that the things that try to change on the outside of us, we are rooted in the things that don't change, instead of having an education system that's trying to change with that. And so there you have it. And you can go to the website on that. You can go to Vision and Mission of Des Moines Public Schools. You can look that up and check that out for yourself, give it a read, and you know what, maybe get back to us on the Challenge Facebook page and say what you think about that. I'd be curious about that at some point. So here you have, and I'm going to go back to my notation here. Here's some quick questions. I don't want to chew up your whole day here, but I got some quick questions that were asked by the panel operators and then answered by the three individuals running for school board. First question that was asked is, what is the primary responsibility? Now, some of these I'm going to give a little tongue-in-cheek, but it really was my takeaway because some of this information was not much different than the summary of the what I just read you for the vision of the schools. I learned recently in the last few years that I would categorize the vision statement of Des Moines into this. I would call it a word salad. So I had a woman nearly 90 years old educate me on the phrase word salad. And I thought, I've never heard of the term word salad. And she said, yes, it's when there's a lot of intellectual speaking without any substance. And I went, wow, I have been schooled by this elderly woman who I respect greatly, and apparently it's something of the younger generation. And I'm like, where did I miss this? The age of you, the age of me, and the youth coming up. How come I missed word salad and you know what a word salad is? Anyway, probably because I didn't finish college. I'm sure that's what it was. So the vision is a word salad. And I want to say last night I heard word salads and I heard information that was not word salads. And so let me start with this. Primary responsibility? Well, Schuyler kept using the term liaison. The board's main objective and purpose is to be a liaison to the community, a liaison to the students, a liaison to the state. And I went, I've never heard. I just found that interesting. And you know, I think when you say the word liaison, that makes you sound very smart, but I thought, I'm not sure, that's not convinced me that that's what the purpose is in this. That's why I wouldn't see that. You know, when you think of the board of a large corporation, the boards of churches, I don't think their responsibility is to be a liaison to the people. I think their job is to sit down and make the tough decisions to make sure there is success within that system. Their job is to sit down and put up walls where things need to be stopped and tear down walls where things need to happen, all in the course of making decisions that maybe are very unpopular, but it must happen for the benefit of the purpose. And might I add, if the purpose is a word salad, then maybe the purpose of the board is being a liaison. I don't know. There's my take on that. I'm telling you that right now. Now, the Maria Alonso, and I wrote this down. Much of this is the quotations of what they stated. Her take on the primary responsibility, and I thought this raised a red flag with me. I found this interesting anyway. Maria Alonso said, the primary responsibility of the board is to establish the vision. This isn't the only thing she said. She also mentioned liaison. Well, I also found this out. When the first person gives an answer, everybody else has some words to use for their own answer. So if you don't really have an answer and you let somebody else speak first, you can come up with an answer. That's the way I did my tests. So, you know, I learned how to write tests and make them sound good anyway. She said that her initial statement is to establish a vision with the superintendent. She is a sitting board member. I'm just going to let that sink in for a minute. She's a sitting board member, and she says the primary responsibility is to establish the vision of the district with the superintendent. Yeah, you heard that right. So the superintendent that is no longer there. That apparently was their primary. And we're still giving word salads instead of saying, I broke the plate. Okay? Actually, we're going to get to a question. This Miss Brooks was so excellent. She asked some tough questions, too. I thought, oh, my gosh, with these questions coming, there's a lot of soft questions coming. And Gabrielle, at some point, you could almost hear her loading both barrels of the gun, and I don't even know that she would support gun laws. So it was amazing. I went, you could almost hear it. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's this question coming from? So don't worry, she got there. Establish vision with the superintendent. I found that interesting. Now, that's telling, right? I think it's telling. Now, we also have Marcus Conan was there too. And he was the only of the three people on that one that said, reading scores, the primary responsibility is to test the capability of the students. Oh my gosh. That the school board should be responsible for all the things it is doing to see an increase in the children's actual capability. I went, dude, I don't know what your political leaning is, but you've already got my attention. Kudos to you, because that's right. He's the only one that mentioned that. He's the one that initially mentioned that, actually. And he also said that the board should represent, that was his primary statement. That was the purpose of the board. And Maria Alonso also said, though, that the role of the board not only was to establish a vision with the superintendent, but was also to represent the quote-unquote values of a community, of its community. Now, one of the things that I learned is that, I know this in politics, when somebody says values of the community, what they mean is get rid of other people's values and create value. Nobody seems to define what those values are, right? But it's another word salad word that just means, oh, yeah, values. Okay, so what are those values? And I learned later on through the evening that values simply means minority children are valued above non-minority children. That's kind of the premise. If you're a minority, you should be more highly valued than above non-minority children. Nothing to do with test scores. Just more resources should be poured towards that ideal instead of the ideal of helping all kids raise their test scores so that they have knowledge in a ever-changing world. She also stated that its purpose was to elevate all communities. Now, if Skylar's primary purpose is to be liaison, representative, be seen, communicate, contact with the people, and just show everybody what's going on, that's a problem. And if Maria Alonso believes that the whole purpose of this is to establish a vision with the superintendent, which she just revealed, I don't know how you can't see this stuff. She just revealed, I'm a part of the problem, and I'd like you to vote for me also. That's what that says to me. I put that superintendent in place, and I'd like for you to vote for me again. I'm not sure how that works. I'm not even sure. I think she was a nice lady. She was a really nice lady. I just think it's time to, kind of lay it down and head on to the next thing of your life and say, you know what? I broke the plate. Next person's turn. Next question that came out of this. What are the priority initiatives? What are the priority initiatives? So, Skylar Alonso, you're not going to believe this. He said to be a liaison to the community. I thought, hey, I think we're overusing the word a little bit. And he said other things too. I'm picking on him here just a little bit, but there really was an emphasis on the how I look and how I am perceived. And what I'm talking about is these are questions saying, hey, what are the bricks we're going to be putting on this? Not the paint we're going to be putting on the outside of the structure. That was my takeaway from it anyway. Maria Alonso to that, the priority initiatives, is that the community engagement is important. Okay. And then also better relationships with families. I found that interesting because right now the school board has currently slapped all the families, and they have a responsibility to work on that a little bit, either by removing themselves and let a whole new board come in, or just say, again, I broke the plate. Mark said this. I thought Cohen, his response was, are you ready for this? And he said, this is going to be new for him. If he comes in, he is already going to visit the schools to see what they look like. All right? He's already taken the time to do that. And he says, to become more knowledgeable, this is his priority initiative, to become more knowledgeable of the schools themselves. And then his next focus would be the hiring of the next superintendent long-term, to get that right. And then to change, this was amazing, he said to change the order of the current school board meetings. And he was brave enough to say they are not well thought out. And he said the school board meetings are run illogically and not completing the tasks. And I got to tell you, I went to one Des Moines school board meeting with my brother, one of my brothers from the men's group, and that he nailed it. We went down there and went, what? And this guy totally nailed that. And he wasn't against him. He says, I appreciate, I mean, we had two sitting board members right next to him. He goes, look, I appreciate what you guys are doing. But he was very straightforward about this. The meetings are not held logically. They are not set up for this. Now, I do want to credit for a second, because this is deserving. Skylar Mayberry Hayes did say this. One of the things that he did in the 2 years that he sat, now remember, he came in as a replacement to the gentleman who passed from the board. He recognized that the people who had thoughts or needed to share in the board meetings, instead of being put at the end of the agenda, that should start at the beginning. And I thought, he said, we should let people's ideas come first and not have people wait. And I'm going to tell you, I thought Skylar was doing a nice job of putting a priority on the thoughts of the parents in the community and the taxpayers in the community. So Skylar got a big thumbs up for me on that. No, he didn't look up at me, and I wasn't going thumbs up, but he from me, he got a big thumbs up saying, you know what, people need the opportunity to express. And as you know, in the last 5 years, parents have struggled to be able to express. So maybe there's some hope there in that. So here is the next question that I have notated down here that the moderator asked, that we started stepping into the Ian Roberts mud. This next question was the detention of Ian, speak to the detention of Ian Roberts. Was this a process problem or a structural problem? First person to respond was Marcus Conan, and he immediately said, first problem was in the process of this. He says, when he was hired, the school board used what's called a closed door system. So they hid away. Everything was closed door. It wasn't open to the public. And I thought for a moment, wait a minute. So Maria Alonso said that the primary responsibility is to establish a vision with the superintendent that nobody gets to be a part of the hiring process. I'm starting to tie these little dots together on this. And I'm like, whoa, yes. He said that should have been open doors. That should have been to the community. So they shut it, not only, and they had the gall to sue a company that was supposed to be responsible for the recommendations, the background checks, and all these kinds of things. But at the same time, they shut it away from the community so it wasn't public, so it wasn't seen. I'm sorry, I believe motive was produced in that. I think that reveals the motive of the school board. Says, we want this guy. And I don't know about you, man, my sinful nature, your sinful nature, here's the bottom line. When you want something you shouldn't have, but you really, really, really want it, here's what you do to get it done. You do all of this. You shut out everybody. I should call my accountability partner. But if I don't, I can do what I want. Oh, I should call my brother in Christ, and we should have this good conversation because I'm really upset about it right now. And go, yeah, but if I call him, then I can't go beat somebody up. This is what this is. That's really what that's showing in that, right? So that's a problem. And so I thought Marcus Conan did a nice job of saying, yep, first of all, that's a problem. That's a structural, that's a procedural problem was a part of that, and that's not good. And then he also recognized, and I thought this was good. He said, it's the state of Iowa that approves a superintendent's license in the end. So he said, where's the accountability to that? Kudos to that. Hadn't thought about that. That's true. Not only the board, but then the state should have a responsibility for that it didn't pursue it. However, I want it noted that it was a closed door. So I'm not sure what the state is supposed to know or do if it's shut down to the public and expect the state to authorize that. I don't know, but I think he made a good point there. I really did. And so he said, the board bears some responsibility. They need to bear some responsibility in this. Maria Alonso on this question of detention of Ian Roberts was a procedural problem or a structural problem. She just said, because she was a sitting board member, this was her answer: we did the best we could with the info we had. Maria, you got to remember Junior Asparagus, because all of you have been saying that's the definition of the media terminology that's been agreed upon by the whole school board. So my Facebook has been filled with all this information. I'm not asking for it. And guess what everybody's always saying? What you just said. We did the best we could with the information we had. You're a nice lady. I enjoyed my conversation with you at the beginning, but that is not accepting responsibility. You can't do that. And I think we do. I hope this encourages other candidates in the midst of this. You just can't do that. We did the best we could. And Schuyler said, well, he had only been there for 2 years, so he distanced himself from the original hire. Said, I wasn't there when they hired Roberts. I think that's a mistake. If you're a sitting board member, you still got to own something. You still got to be a part of it. And he said, so I'm trying to avoid hypotheticals, but he did believe that there was a structural problem overall within the system that would allow that to happen. Fair enough. Now, here's the big one, and I'm not going to be able to get too much farther in this, but these were tough questions. One of them I'm not even going to be, well, I will. I'm going to get to them. Is it all right? Mr. Willman, can we keep going here just a little? Is that all right? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And my studio audience isn't asleep yet, so I appreciate that too. So here it is. This was the question that I heard the double-barrel shotgun loaded in, and I didn't know I was going to hear this. How do you build public trust in light of what has happened with Ian Roberts? And I went, I am all ears. How do you build public trust? If I would have been asked the question, in staying consistent with today's theme, I would have recommended quoting, once again, Junior Asparagus. Because when any of us just openly admit, I did it, I broke the plate, I'm telling you, I'll tell you what it does for me. If I'm making excuses, the relationships that I'm in close, they begin to distance themselves, because people aren't looking for excuses. They're looking for an opportunity of truth. And I really do believe that Christians in particular, we need an opportunity to offer grace, but it's hard to offer mercy and grace when people keep making excuses. But I don't know about you guys, but when somebody says, you know what, I did it, it just makes my heart want to bring mercy forth. It just makes my heart want to say, hey, yep, I appreciate that. I'm with you. I'm totally with you. Because anything else creates mistrust. So, Maria Alonso, to the question, how do you build public trust? Before I give the answers of the three that showed up to have this discussion, of which I was appreciative, I learned a lot. I got to tell you, you could have heard a pin drop, and that's not a lie. Yeah, there was only 15 people in there, but I'm telling you, you probably could have heard a hair drop, because it was very quiet for too long. And that already built mistrust in me. The fact that this had to be sat on for so long, right? How do you build public trust? So Maria Alonso says this: stay focused on the processes for the students. Now, she said more, but her primary was, we just need to stay focused on what we should be doing and the processes for the students. So the problem with that is when you're off the correct freeway, you can't keep focusing off of the correct freeway. And that's what she was suggesting. We just got to, I know we're wrong, but now we just need to focus on how we're driving when we're wrong. That's really what that means. We need to keep focusing on the processes of the students. Kept saying, the students, it's about the children. I'm not a fan of those bumper stickers, by the way. Stay focused on the process for the students. And then she said, and focus on the kids. And that's political jargon for please don't look at the problem and please have empathy for children. And you know what? That is what got us where we're at. That is what has lowered the testing scores overall. And that is what got us Ian Roberts. That's the problem. You focused on the emotion of the importance of people should be voting for kids instead of the truth of what's going on. Now, Skylar Mayberry Hayes, his general response to how do we build the public trust was some things the board has already done. Meaning we have let people know what we're doing. And he felt that building the public trust had begun with them not firing him and waiting until the facts came in. Now, I'm going to agree with that point. Wait till the facts came in. You know, I'm in disagreement with most of the school board, but when they said, you know what, we need to find this out. I agree with that, by the way. When ICE came in and they arrested him, I would agree, don't do any trigger finger actions until some facts rolled out. I definitely actually kudoed the board for that. That was smart of them. I think that's wisdom. That's the wisdom they maybe should have employed in the first place. But so he was saying, so yeah, we didn't fire him, but we looked for the truths to come in first, and then as they happened, then we were able to do things that were necessary. Now, my opinion is what was necessary is then he should have been fired. And I stand on this. I've said it before in this program. The proof that the school board is defending themselves is that they never fired him. They let him resign. And I'm sorry, that's a problem. And then Skylar said, and this is a journey, and we need to focus on the journey. I'm sorry, we got to stop using the journey terminology around here too, especially, I've heard in the church. Has anybody else ever heard that in the church before? And somebody says, hey, you know what? Our life here with God is a journey. It's a journey. I'm not sure of the studio audience and Mr. Willman, does Paul ever refer to it as a journey? Am I missing something on that? Maybe he does a little bit, but my opinion is I believe he calls it a race. And I'm here to tell you, a journey and a race are not the same thing. I know you're looking at my size, but I do know what it is to be in a race. It's true. So I do know the difference. I wasn't always this guy. And a journey is something else. And so when we keep using that terminology, it keeps word salading things into the disappearance mode of the fog that falls when wrong is going on so that nobody can actually see the problem. And so that's sad to me, but this is, again, I think it's very reflective of why the Des Moines School Board is where it's at. Now, I really am hopeful. I really believe that there's possibility for change. Hey, maybe next time I run, and maybe I'll be terrible at it. That is highly possible. If I were to do that, and then I really stunk at it, I'm going to raise my hand, and that's right. What am I going to say? I broke the plate. I'm no good at this. I got to get out of it as long as we're honest about that. All right. So how else do we build the public trust? Marcus Conan says this. He said, now the steps that the board take were commendable. He said, however, more steps are needed. He says, we need to keep communicating forthrightly with the public. And don't be defensive. This is what he said. Don't be defensive about people who are concerned. I went, wow. That's pretty. Again, I don't know, Marcus. I was glad you were there. I think you were shedding some good light on this. And if you're that outside person that's coming in, I hope some more understanding that you seem to bring to the table brings this. So that is, there was. All right, I'm going to go there. This is going to be this isn't the last question that was asked, but before I go into the referendum that's also going to be voted for on November 4th, and I need to talk about that because, unfortunately, after the end of the meeting last night with the panel, suddenly became a political moment to push for the vote for spending money. And I have some thoughts on that too, but I thought that was really, personally, I thought that was just me, I don't know, it's the first one I've ever been to. I thought that was really disrespectful to the ladies that put this together for the purpose of information to let it be a political push for, hey, everybody, vote that we spend more money. And I'm going to give you a very strong opinion upon that in just a minute. But one of the last questions was, and I didn't even realize this was an issue, but these gals put some tough questions together. They said, what about immigrant enforcement around school sensitivity? And I'm like, this is a thing? Well, yes, there's different areas where immigration, meaning ICE, the referral is that ICE is going around and rounding up. Now, you and I know ICE is going around and rounding up illegals. And that's my, disagree with me, agree with me, whatever. That's what they're going doing. And so the question was actually to these three to say, how do you feel about what ICE is doing now and what that means within the school district? And without looking at my notes, I can quickly give you a summary of what all three of them said. All of them acknowledged that, and I thought, even to the most left of them, all of them acknowledged, look, there are rules in place that the school needs to abide by, understanding that the school is a very sensitive place. Part of this means, and I've not seen it necessarily, but there's rules in place that if, and Maria brought this up, Maria Alonso brought this up, and I thought it was smart, pretty wise, is that, yes, look, if ICE shows up to the school district has a responsibility to say, so you're here, what is your court order? I'd do that, right? If they showed up to my house, I would say, do you have a warrant for this? And actually, I believe that should be in place. And whether it's from a defensive posture or not, I think she was rightly saying, we as a school say, look, you just can't walk in to a school and take children because maybe they are of illegal family members or whatever. And she got to that spot. Unfortunately, she also had a severely long, she was the first to answer on this, and she's Latina. And the reason I know is because when she came in, she was greeting everybody in Spanish, which everybody obviously knows Spanish, or at least she was letting us know we all need to. All right, I dropped that bomb. I did. I just said that. Shame on me. Rats. Every time that happens, I want to speak back in Norwegian because I'm pretty confident she doesn't know that language either. So I was hoping to find a language. But I did tell her, she was really nicely. I said, there's three things I do know how to say in Spanish. Como está, bien, and Dios te bendigos, which means God bless you. And she went, God bless you. So we both know how to speak Spanish, what it means, Dios te bendigos. So that's pretty cool. But with that being said, in that sensitivity, she made it a point to say she had been in a classroom where there were some children there who were afraid, and that her heart, we need to really consider these children, that they were afraid that if they got home, what if mom and dad are gone? Now, I don't know about you, but I think that means we know some things. And are you saying, John, you don't have a heart for those children? No, actually, I have an extreme heart for those children. And I think the posture of those children being afraid by not making things right is actually abusive to children. When we avoid the truth, children suffer. And if we start denying that if they're parents, and they could be loving, they could be Christian, they could be caring, they could be tax paying, but if they're illegal and they snuck in and nobody knows they're here, the likelihood of them going to prison or being deported is high. That my compassion is for the children. That's why we need to stop abusing children by pretending their parents were being responsible when they weren't. And actually, the school's not responsible for how those children feel. And with that being said, Maria made a pretty big mistake, meaning that the feelings of the children's fears, which are legitimate, I have children, I don't want them to have fears of such a thing, but they're not the only ones that live in that category of having to deal with going home and what if my parents aren't there? What if that happens? I think most kids have a thought of that at some point or another. What would happen if my family were gone? But now they have a reason. So it's time to start walking in the truth so these children can live in a life of truth and not deception, and those parents need to be held accountable for that. So I think that was a mistake on her part. And she said all children should get an education but should be safe. Safe from what? The laws that are enforced? I mean, there's no danger to these children going back to Mexico. Yeah, but you know what's in Mexico? Everybody asks me that. I say, yes, I do. I go to Mexico. Have you been there? And they go, oh, no. Well, then you don't know the dangers in Mexico. Don't you understand why they're coming here? Absolutely, I do. Because Mexico's a pretty rough place to live. Doesn't change many of those things, and certainly shouldn't have an influence. The school certainly, I do like it that the school protects the children from what I would call over-enforcement or risk or sensitive area. No, nobody would want the child to go through that kind of trauma. If it's happening, I'm not aware of it. In particular, I've not heard of it, not one time in the Des Moines school system. So I thought that was kind of an interesting question to be asked, because it's not happening here in Des Moines over that. And if it is, and I'm incorrect on that, then I could certainly be corrected. That's all right. So Skylar Mayberry was also very slow to answer this, very slow. And as the sitting vice chair said that obviously those laws are in place, and as a board member, those would have to be acknowledged and walked correctly in with the government. And then he also said, but when I go home, I'm not a board member there, and then I can pretty much do whatever the H I want. So let me be very clear. Sky was a really nice kid, and he had a lot of word salad. Like, I'm not even smart enough to eat the word salad that he usually came up with, but I'm going to say this. If you think you get to be a school board member and then publicly declare in front of everybody that, as a school board member, we're going to follow this, but when I go home, I can do anything I want to harbor illegals and protect them. I don't know, man. You take the information and do something with that. Do you want that guy on the school board? I want to be a police officer so that I can live a life of enforcement against criminals. But I'll tell you what, when I get home, I'm going to take innocent people and beat the crap out of them. Right? Would we tolerate that? Come on. Really? That concerned me. Marcus Conan didn't speak to it as much, except for that the policy in place should be there to protect children from anything that would damage them, and consider that, yes, a sensitive place. And so I appreciated everybody was candid about what they said. For if anybody was trying to hide something, I think it's very easy to put the dots together, which is why I'm having the conversation. This is why I'm saying this. And I'm saying, how do you find out who these candidates are? I'm telling you, I learned more about these three candidates by going to what the Drake University students and the political group that did this. And again, I apologize for not knowing the exact name of that. Or what? Hold on, I might actually be able. Hold on. I don't know if that has a specific name group here. I just thought it was well done. Oh, the Student Senate of Civic, and here it is, Drake Student Senate Civic Engagement. Senator Gabrielle Brooks put that together. There it is. Perfect. So the Senate Civic Engagement, Drake Student Senate Engagement. So the questions were done, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Skylar pulls out these brochures that he wants to hand to everybody. Are we done? And he pulls out these brochures, and he begins talking about the bond issue. So I'm gonna close with the bond issue of this. So all the questions were there. The purpose of having that and got it together, even though there's 15 people in the room, he then used that as an opportunity to say, you know what, I can't endorse or tell you which way to vote, but this is important. And I'm telling you, once again, it shows the character of the people who are running, that he used that opportunity to say, you need this information. But unfortunately, my one mark against Marcus Conan is he goes, well, since I'm not a sitting board member, I can tell you should vote for this. So I also learned something. I like his wisdom. I like all those things. But I got to tell you, they're asking for, here it is, and this is going to be a part of November 4th vote. And I have seen this, and there's been a lot of liberal and conservatives who are questioning what to do with this. So I found it interesting that all three of them jumped on the same wagon and said, or at least alluded to. I'm not saying that Skylar officially broke the rules, but if you say, look, I can't tell you which way to vote, nod my head. Okay, so you didn't officially break the rules, but obviously all three of them wanted to see this. Here's the problem, though, and this is the way I saw it. So this is $265 million bond issue, but it's a part of what's called the Reimagine Education And I've been seeing all the kiosks. I have schools that are around me where I live in Des Moines, and you see it, reimagination, reimagine education, reimagine education. Let me be perfectly clear who the instigator of reimagine education was. Ian Roberts. So you've got three people backing a plan that came from a guy who's a criminal that lied. But now you can't really say how to build the trust with the Des Moines community. You've got no plan for that. You've got no really good way to actually get that done, but you're asking for the money. If an offense, and I think it's important not to take too much offense in life, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's the only thing that happened that night that I went, you have to be kidding me. Nobody can really answer what truly needs to be done. And this shows, ladies and gentlemen, that if Christianity is not brought to the table of political discussion, there is no boundaries to be set in regards to the moral character of what needs to be done. And this is proof positive. This is my opinion, but I'm telling you, this is the truth. If you can't answer me how you're going to rebuild my trust and you're not going to admit that there's a problem, but really say, please give me your money, no. Absolutely not. Because Des Moines has a pretty high rate of taxes already, and the $265 million, and they said it. He was bold to say it. Skyler was bold to say it. He goes, this is going to raise your taxes $190. You're going to have a $190 tax increase. So let me say something. A year. Let me say something. First of all, who isn't going to pay that tax? The groups that they are advocating for equity. Now think about this for a second. You've sowed distrust into the city and its people, and now you're asking those of us who are, and excuse me, I'm probably not going to be able to say that phrase easily, so I'm going to omit one word, working our off in the city. And because if you don't own property, you won't be paying that tax. And they're advocating for taking money from people they lied to for the purpose of distributing it to people who won't be able to pay for it. I'm not saying against anybody. If you don't own property, you're not paying property tax. And the groups they want that to go to is the people who are unable to pay for that. And as sad as that is, and it is, because I would want anybody to continue in their life successfully enough to feel like I'm doing well with my finances, and this is important. But what I'm saying is I would be much more happy to extract that money from my taxes, and generally I'm not, anyway, if I understood that, one, you were sorry and you done wrong, and number two, you're saying, you know what, everybody, see, this is another trust issue. Nobody suggested that to build the community's trust to say, you know what, everybody, let's call this last thing a wash. Let's wipe the slate, and we're not going to request $190 more dollars per household for this. Let's take a deep breath, and we're going to come up with something next year to present. Because you cannot bring distrust into a system. You cannot bring a vision that Ian Roberts gave to the community, not raise test scores, reimagine is the name of the program. And then they said, well, basically it's bricks and mortar and bringing the tech. And Skyler even said, one of the gentlemen asked him a question, and Skyler said, well, you know, it's bricks and mortar and it's buildings, and there's a list of the buildings that we are going to be shutting down, and then the buildings that we are going to be keeping open. And he said this. He said, can you imagine information that's needing to be had, and you are in a classroom and you can't even Skype? And I thought, what a tragedy. And by the way, I work in the public school systems. I haven't been in a room yet that's not possible. So why is somebody asking for more money for something that already exists? I even spoke with an individual who was a temporary fill-in teacher, substitute for several years. They said they were never once in a classroom that didn't have that capability, so they weren't understanding what the statement was or what that meant. We need more money to modernize what? No, this is a ruse. This is a ruse to take money to infiltrate indoctrination in the name of brick and mortar. I'm telling you, I'm shooting you straight on this. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So obviously how you vote is up to you, but that was a clear mistake on all three of the parties. And see, is there potential for Des Moines School Board becoming something other than what it was? That's going to be a hard road, because I think in the end they may be reflecting there's not enough difference to be made to be changed. We'll see. I don't know. I'm a cynic on that. I want to be hopeful, but on this at the moment, what little excitement I have about it that does exist for people like Marcus Cohan, say what he was doing, and I appreciate that. I would have to say I'm not sure this class is half full yet. So, as we're closing down today, I appreciate being on the podcast. Come check us out. These are my thoughts on what's happening with the school board. These are my thoughts on what our future may look like. Go ahead and go out and vote. I'm looking forward to doing something I should have done a long time ago. And I do pray that the people that do get put in are guided by the hand of God. And no, it's not an easy job. Yes, it is easy for me to sit here and criticize. But I hope you, like myself, are considering ourselves and saying, okay, there's some ownership I have to have in what's gone on too. How can I get involved? Not in a stupid way, but in a way that does benefit a community, but doesn't deny the truth, the Word of God, the living Savior, Jesus Christ, in your heart, and the Spirit of the living God, which you have been birthed into by His life in you as a believer. And if you don't know Jesus, you can do some good works, but I'm going to recommend the good news of the gospel is to repent and believe in the gospel good news, the work of Jesus Christ in Him, and start from that premise. So God bless you. I'm telling you, put away the gods of your fathers and choose this day whom you will serve. If you don't choose the Lord, I know that I will choose this day. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.